Do you have a good workers' comp attorney? I'd like to file a complaint on behalf of Steph Curry.
We putting out for the next time.
Can I do it? It's a class action. I'm sure you can get a lot of other people's support if they accept the class action.
He couldn't help you.
You'll do that?
That's crazy.
I have a season ticket.
Oh, God.
And it's just to Seattle.
Yeah. All right, so, well, I'll just go get that point. Okay.
I don't know the value, but I got a couple people in my house crying. Husband been on the couch and he needs therapy. So come on. All right. With that, we can get started. Lord, I can't even see. I can't see out the glasses. Nothing. Okay.
Recording in progress.
Where's my gavel? I don't have a gavel.
Your gavel, is that if you want to replace a spare, I know it's not yours. I know.
You want, she said no.
It's not, yeah, it's not your gavel.
Other people that touch me.
It's got
Here we go. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Is it on in? Can you see the green light?
No, it's not on there. It's on.
It's on? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ms. Robin. Hola, buenos dias. It is 9:03 and I'm calling this meeting to order. And this is Thursday, May 8th, meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Director King Meredith. Present. Chair Sudek.
I am present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, madam. Public comment. Now it's time for public comment for items not on the agenda. Madam, will you read the rules for public comment? I would, but I can't see it.
Members of the public may comment during this time up to 3 minutes per speaker. Directors may ask brief clarifying questions but may not engage in discussion regarding public comment made during this time. We have not received any requests to speak. If anyone has comments, please approach the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing none, we have no public comments.
Thank you so much. Deputy General Manager Justin Level, will you please lead us through the rest of the agenda?
All right. So item 1 on the agenda is to accept the minutes of April 17th, 2025 Finance Administration Committee meeting. Madam Clerk, have we received written comments on this item or requests to speak?
We have not. If anyone wishes to comment on item 1, please approach the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing none, we have no public comments.
Okay. Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to make a motion to accept the minutes of the April the 17th, 2025 special meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee.
Wonderful. It is, I concur. Move next item. It will be in the record.
Item 2 on the agenda is to review updates to the Public Records Act policy and recommend approval for board consideration. Madam Clerk, have we received written comments on this item or requests to speak?
We have not. If anyone wishes to comment on item 2, please approach the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing none, we have no public comments.
All right, I'd like to pass this over to Sarah Williamson, our Records Program Manager, to introduce the item.
Good morning.
So we are updating our Public Records Act policy. The last policy we have is from 2004. Now, I was a sophomore in high school at the time, so I wasn't around. And I can't give you much context about that. But Proposition 59 was passed in 2004 that ensconced the Public Records Act, or the ideas behind the Public Records Act in the California Constitution. So I imagine that had something to do of this 2004 policy. As far as I know, this is the only policy the district has had for the Public Records Act. This policy update is not going to show that we're not just leaving it at that we're gonna be responding, we're gonna be courteous, we're going to be as prompt as we can be, we're not gonna just sit on stuff because we can. We're going to, recognize that when the public comes for records, they may be under time constraints and things like that. So we wanna provide them as quickly as possible, while abiding by the letter of the California Public Records Act. Probably the most important section for this update is section 5, which is our customer service commitment. I wanted to just sort of highlight the distinction that we're making here between the letter of the Public Records Act and what we want to provide via our policy. For example, in section 5, the California Public Records Act requires us to give not prompt access, I'm sorry, that's what we want to do. We are supposed to have reasonable time period for responding to requests to give people the records they're requesting. We are making that promptly rather than a reasonable amount of time. So just little things like that, proactive disclosure. We're going to put things on the website for folks that we know that they're going to want to have access to proactively rather than reactively. So that's it. It's not too major of an update, but it's just sort of emphasizing the direction that we're moving with in responding to Public Records Act requests.
Director.
Okay, thank you, Sarah, for that update. I just have one question, and it's in section 5. I know that, correct me if I'm wrong, that if someone wants to see the records, that they can walk in. Can they walk in and ask someone to, I guess, retrieve a certain item, and it will be handed to them via copy, or if they just want to stay on site and look at it? Is that still permissible? I mean, to be here on site? Are they in a certain area? Where would they go? Do they stand at the counter to look at this information, or do you have a designated somewhere for them to sit down? Just like in a library, just sit down and review, and once they're done, and they'll return whatever they were looking for at that time.
I'm really glad you asked that because I wanted to address that, but I wasn't quite sure how to shoehorn that into everything else I was talking about in the introduction. The California Public Records Act was written originally in 1968. So it was a paper-based sort of walk in, the files are all sitting behind the counter, I would like to see, I would like to see what you have for my property, et cetera. It was a little bit of a different time, and the way that the law was written, it makes it sound like, if you read it from a non-attorney's perspective, that like you can walk in and request records, we'll open the books for you. That will happen, but just not quite in the way that the language of the law makes it seem. We still have to determine whether a record is subject to disclosure under the California Public Records Act. So unfortunately, we can't take walk-in folks from the public and say, okay, well, yeah, here, let me just open the books for you. Unfortunately, we need time to determine if we have records responsive to their request and if we can disclose them to a member of the public. So fortunately, we can't take people in on a walk-in basis. What we can do and how we meet the letter of the law is, so you submit us a request. It can be in many different ways, a call on the phone. You can walk in and make that request. You can send it in writing. We'll take it any way we prefer. Written, so an email or something like that makes it easier to respond to, making sure that we're on the same page. But any way that request comes in, we will set up an appointment where you can come in and review the material if you don't want us to make copies or scans or something for you. So yeah, we can take you into our conference room. You can come in, you can look at what we have for you after we have that time to determine what we have and whether we can disclose it. So we can do all of that. It's just not on a walk-in basis because we have to have that period of time to determine if these records are subject to disclosure.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for asking that,
Okay.
because that's an important point.
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions.
Okay, so a couple of things. Because we know that these doors are not open, all the time. It says that it's open to inspection at all times during normal business hours at our Hilltop office. But our doors aren't open, and normal business hours is a little tricky, and since it's locked. And, yeah, when is that?
Well, if you want to, I could just quickly respond. I mean, we do have a doorbell, so if somebody does show up, but, it's, that does create the issue, and that's something that we're discussing. What would the open door hours be, and when we'll do that? Because we do have very low foot traffic. So it's, there's a doorbell if somebody comes here. So if there is somebody here, but there are sometimes, not always, where there's not somebody in proximity to listen to hear the doorbell, but there is most Monday through Friday.
So would it be better to say by appointment or something that really speaks to when it really is? Because it's not at all times, inspection at all time. I'm just wondering, is there something that really reflects that? Or are we required to say this?
The legal
That's what we
standard.
understand.
We're
That's the
required to
legal
say this,
standard,
aren't
yeah.
we?
So the important thing is to make sure that our conduct is conforming to that to the best of our ability, right? So
Right.
that we have that doorbell, that we have somebody who can open the door, even if we don't have a doors unlocked policy at this time, that somebody can, either by appointment or by ringing the doorbell, come and
Yeah.
make a request at least, because as Sarah mentioned, chances are it would be difficult for us to on the spot provide records, but we do
Exactly.
have the legal obligation both to make those records available and to be available to take the request.
Because it doesn't say anything about by appointment, which is what I'm thinking about, right? About by making appointments. And I'm still thinking about, because I came back from last week, about those public auditor
Right.
things. And again, it came up again last week at CWEA, and about these random visitors who can see straight through. And I did it again yesterday. I came in and I looked, and when our that roll-up door is up, you can see straight through. You can see straight through, right? And if somebody is filming, again, you can see straight through. So anytime that is open, you can see straight through to film. So I think that's my thing. So I know they can't go back there, right? But you can still see straight through.
Well, I mean, I think that is a little bit of a different topic, but one of the important pieces from that is that it's not uncommon when you have those kinds of visitors that there are also Public Records Act requests made as part of the interaction.
Exactly.
And so it's completely within West County's discretion to say things like, we prefer to get requests in writing. We prefer to get interaction, like in-person interactions by appointment. But if there is a West County staff person working out in the field and someone says, I want to see these records, that's a Public Records Act request.
Yes.
And so part of the purpose of this is to make sure that folks know that this, while we can state our preference and while we can ask members of the public to communicate this in a way that will be most efficient for West County in actually delivering the records promptly, as Sarah said, ultimately, at the end of the day, the bar is much lower or higher, however you want to think about it. There's a much lower standard for what a member of the public needs to do in order to access these records. So we need to kind of set that boundary and then try to set a framework so that we can be as efficient and responsive as possible by hopefully getting these requests in writing or by appointment.
So when they ask one of our workers, because this is my other question, I understand this, and I'm fortunately, unfortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, having to deal with this pretty much every day. And they ask one of our field workers for this information, like they're out in the field. Got a CSO, knee deep in what they're knee deep in. And they say, okay, so what are you doing? And they're filming them, right? And they're trying their best to stay safe, and they're trying to shield them off. But there's they're pressing them for information. And even though you're telling them, we prefer to have this in writing. And I know we're training them on what to do. And still, you know, like we say, this is the floor, not the ceiling. I think what I wanted to know is, I mean, I love our customer service commitment, but I still wanted to know where are we putting the, I wanted something in here that says, not only is it, are we free to provide, you know, that we're protecting the confidentiality, but also it's something about the safety factor. It's something that I think is something. It's not the safety factor. Is another word I'm looking for. We were talking about this before, Director King Meredith. It's something when they're accosted in the middle of doing their job, and it's something about like what happened at Hilltop a few years ago, Jocelyn, when they're in the middle of it. Okay, so what are you doing? And whose property is this? And why are you doing this right now in the middle of when they're doing it? And is this public property? Well, whose address is this? Well, what's the property owner's name? Things like that in the middle of when they're doing the work. And even though they're asking, and it is public records, right? But,
Kind
well,
of.
can you ask me this can you give this to me in writing? And a lot of times the workers themselves don't have that language. And then it becomes this confrontation. So this is what I'm looking for.
Sure.
Do you understand my question?
I do understand. So I think there's a couple of key things. My understanding is that Sarah's been doing brown bags with staff across the agency in part to talk about what the obligations are under the Public Records Act. I think one of the important things in the example that you just gave is that none of those questions are records, right? So a member of the public saying whose property is this, that's not a record that they're asking for. That's just information. And it's certainly within West County and staff's discretion to say, I'm working right now. This is what I need to be focusing on. And so I think there's just a kind of important distinction to be made between Public Records Act requests and this policy and sort of the unexpected visitors and folks who are coming into film and things like that. That's just a different context.
But I think that's what I want, though. I think I want this to say something, some kind of disclaimer that says random inquiries you know, you'll have a disclaimer that says random inquiries of workers is not covered under the Public Records Act or something like that. Do you understand my question? There's a difference between a CAPRA, that's, you know, something that's covered under CAPRA, than just random inquiries of an employee or because the CAPRA is very specific, rather than just a random inquiry of a worker in a street, or even of me or Director King Meredith or any of us. A random inquiry is just a random inquiry. So what are you guys working on that board? Is different than something that's covered under California Public Records Act. And maybe it's just a small disclaimer on the actual policy. But I just wanted to make the distinction for the public that you can ask us questions, but that's different than an actual, something that's actually covered under CAPRA. Because I think that while we may understand it, I don't think the public understands the difference.
You have to direct them back.
But I want to direct them back to, okay, if you really want this information and you believe that you're entitled to this information, you know, we do have a California Public Records Act where you can request it. And then we will let our records manager and our legal department determine if you're entitled to this information. What I'm telling you is that yes, I do not believe that this is disclosable, but this is not up to me. So it's things like that, because we get people all the time. I know I do. Well, why can't you tell me this? Well, I want to. And two, I don't believe that it is within my purview to tell you. It's things like that. So I think I just want one line that says that. Do you understand what I'm
No,
asking?
I do. And I think I absolutely understand what you're saying. The policy, you know, has this definition of what's a public record. It's a writing, and then it goes into the definition, the legal definition of a writing. All of these things are tangible things, right? It's something that you could look at, read, listen to, something like that, but it's not a request for information. That's a different kind of request. And I do wonder, I mean, maybe I'll kick it back to Sarah to see how, in the context of the trainings that you're doing with staff, you talk about the difference between a record and just a request for information.
Yeah, so we train on making the distinction between a request for information and a request for a record. Information is information, right? So, how much was the contract with such and such contractor for? When is the work gonna start? If it's something that you can express to someone without writing, it's just information, but if it's ensconced in media, so it's on a piece of paper, it's in a book, it's on a software, screen, that's when it becomes a record, and that's when it becomes subject to the California Public Records Act. It's a fairly, conceptual distinction, and I think that, I don't have a little high, expectation for the public to be able to make the distinction, and for a lot of the folks who aren't looking for records every day. We could put something like, here in the definitions, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. We could put something that indicates what a request for information is versus a request for records. So people should be able, to know that they can make a request for information and we'll process it like any other customer service request.
That's what I'm looking for. I think that this request for records excludes requests for information, and that the request for information is under a different, is a different process. I think this is what I'm looking for,
And the other thing, just to add,
if that makes sense to you.
Chair Sardif, is for the field, we do have little cards that we've given to staff, so, because they don't have the answers most of the time, or
Exactly.
they don't have the time, like, they're busy, for
Right.
safety concerns, they need to be focused on their work.
That's my
But there is, it's a kind of a handout where it's like, hey, this is the phone number to call, this is an email address, these are who you can contact for your
That's my
questions.
point.
So we do have that out.
That's
in the
my
field,
point,
yeah.
because I know I hear all the time, okay, so why are they doing this? Oh, that's interesting. So can you tell me? Oh, I heard about PFAS before. Oh, I heard about these before. Can you say, no, I need to do my job, or just, I know for us, when we're out in the street and they start asking these questions, and I'm like, you need to talk to the PR people, and plus, you don't want to get it incorrect. And I know a lot more than most people about, science or whatever. I still don't want to say it.
The wrong thing.
They're not my thing. I still think, well, even if it's not the wrong thing, we have a protocol, right? And I'm a big protocol person. And if the rule is that you're supposed to speak with one voice, you're supposed to speak with one voice. And then, so if you have a request for information, you have a request for information, then, which is different, I know, than PRA. I deal with that every day in my other job. So I just think that if it's request for information, so if it's a RFI versus a PRA, I just want to make that distinction. So even if it's just one line, I don't want to put too much, just that one disclaimer.
No, I think we could certainly add something that just says either something along the lines of, a request for information that does not include records or public records, as we were defining it under this, will be handled according to our customer service. And so we'll just
Thank you.
tweak some language around that.
That's all and then the rest of it, I thought was it cleaned up very well. I thought that was just my one thing that stuck out in my head, was just that distinction. So thank you. That was good for me. You, anything else?
No, mine's just the concern is when you walk in and they have the designated area.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't here in 1968 either, so I get it. I get it. So my brother was, but I wasn't here. So I heard it was a good time, though. Sounded fun. Look, a little turbulent, but hey, it's turbulent now, so we're good. Do we have an action on this?
Yeah, that would be, taking the feedback.
Yeah.
There's that one adding
So,
that,
yes.
we'll go back to the board. So we're asking of the
So
committee
we need
to
to
recommend.
forward it to the
the
board for
board.
consideration. You want to make a motion, madam?
Yes. So with the PRA policy update, that, for,
You want to move it to the full board?
we would like to, recommend for this to go to the full board.
Okay, and I would concur based on the conversation and with that edit to distinguish between PRA and RFI, that we can move these to the full board, and that way we can have less of a conversation, robust discussion, if we can do that, okay? I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Looks good. All right, sir, next item?
Next item on the agenda is item 3, is review and discuss the fiscal year 26 and 27 proposed biennial budget. Madam Clerk, have we received written comments on this item or requests to speak?
We have not, if anyone wishes to comment on item 3, please approach the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing none, we have no public comments.
All right, so we'll just do a brief introduction, but for Abney Allen is our financial analyst. She'll be giving our presentation on this item. So this is, this is our budget. Just to let you know, just preface today, we've got, it's kind of 95% there. We're still working on a couple other assumptions, as you know, had discussion last night on tariffs. Reviewing our operating budget is pretty solid right now. It's the, is making sure all of our one-time and these capital requests or capital outlay, that we've got a sufficient budget in there. So we do have line item placeholders in here. Just to let you know that it's, by the time we'll go to the full board, we'll have those finalized, or maybe some small changes. But other than that, I will just turn it over to Abney to give us our presentation to go through our budget.
Thank you. Good morning.
So, yes, this is our proposed biannual budget for the years 26 and 27. So for, we'll start with our, the overview. And for fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27, we are estimating our total revenues to be $38.4 million in FY 26, fiscal year 26, and $38.7 million in fiscal year 27. For expenditures, we are proposing, or estimating $34.9 million in fiscal year 26 and $34.6 million in fiscal year 27. So the revenue assumptions for fiscal year and 26 and 27, we'll start with our operating revenue. For our
Yes, yeah, that was adopted last night, but that user fee, our user fee study. So that is, the report was adopted last night, and we'll come back to the board for the full adoption of the user fee study as part of this budget process.
Okay. Well, this permit fee, revenue assumes that we are gonna be, recovering the full cost of our service. And, we have contract services and other operating revenues. They're gonna decrease because, we have a reduction in the services. And then there's our non-operating revenues, mainly rents and leases. There's a projected decline, starting FY '26 because, our lease for our colors property that is being leased by the plant is, projected to end. And, for bond proceeds, we've already budgeted the full amount of the bond proceeds for FY '26. We budgeted in FY '25, so, that line item will remain zero for fiscal year '26 and fiscal year '27. Capacity charges, those are gonna remain flat, just continuing development. And, we budgeted our, San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority grant in FY '25, but none of it was spent, so we're budgeting the we're budgeting the funds in fiscal year '26, and that will be zero for fiscal year '27. So just a breakdown, operating revenues for, fiscal year '26, it consists of 35.9 million. And non-operating revenues for fiscal year '26 consist of about 2.5 million. And operating revenues for fiscal year '27 totals 38.1 million with $600,000 in non-operating revenues. This is just a breakdown of the percentage by, revenue by source. As you can see, our sewer service charges are the large majority of our fees and, for both years. And so now we go to our planned expenditures for FY '26 and '27. Our biggest expenditure would be our operating personnel. And there's a few assumptions on that for both FY '26 and FY '27. For salaries, it includes, full implementation, of the recommendations of our class and comp study that was done in 2019. We also expect it to decrease as a result of clean and green. We won't, we're anticipating that we won't need to use we won't have to spend the cost of dewatering, and we'll be able to do that at the point. So that is expected to take place, I believe, by mid fiscal year 26. Um, and then so it should be fully operational in fiscal year 27, although we did include some increases for the chemical costs. And then we have our non-operating expenditures, which are debt service. That is our SRF loans and our bond repayments. We have capital outlay, which is for items that need to be capitalized, like large equipment or vehicles that are not a part of our CIP project. And our capital expenses, that's something that we're still working out, but we have budgeted the amount in previous fiscal year, and we're anticipating to just roll that over for FY 26. And this slide, it just breaks down our expenditures between operating and non-operating. And this tells it by category. You can see that our personnel is a little under 50%, and our debt service, capital outlay, and CSO stock repairs, which are all non-operating, is about a quarter, and then our supplies and materials make up the rest. And that's the same scenario in FY 27.
I just want to add while you're,
Yeah,
before
I
you
was
get,
going- I
yeah,
figured.
get a few. Before
I
you,
figured.
I know that concludes Abney's presentation. If I were to just add a few,
I
just
figured.
a few points here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as we've had discussion, Clean and Green Project is transforming how we operate our treatment plant. And a big part of the assumption of Clean and Green is that we are going, because it's a large component of it is related to how electricity is generated. And so it's been delayed, right? And we've had that discussion with the board in the past, but we're on target right now for the digesters to come online by, I believe, next month. And then once the digesters are fully operating and producing gas, then they can turn on the cogeneration, so using the gas from the digesters to power a generator, which will provide electricity to the plant. So then that will further reduce our energy usage. So we're anticipating that's going to happen those first several months of fiscal year 26. And then in addition to that is once the digesters are online, a really large operating expense that we have had the last 5 years is with for dewatering the solids. In lieu of the digesters, because we had no digesters, we needed to treat the solids in a different way, and that greatly increased our operating expenses. 5 years ago was about $2 million a year, and it's now up to about $4.6 million. So that expense is going to completely go away once the digesters are online. And so we're going to realize some really significant savings and benefits and then by fiscal year 27, the battery backup, that's called the BESS, so the battery energy storage system,
Yeah.
which is part of the Clean and Green, will be installed. But that cannot be installed until everything else is done, like the cogeneration's online, the solar is online. That's the very last piece that they can do as part of the Clean and Green project. And we're anticipating that will be fully operational in fiscal year 27. And then in fiscal year 27 is when we are going to realize our full potential of the Clean and Green project. So it's taken us a little bit longer than we anticipated, but that is factored in as part of this budget. And just to let you know on some of the other work, as the board in the next board meeting, we're going to be presenting the draft 5-year strategic plan. And we have other work that's related to the strategic plan additional planning documents is going to help us inform future years. And with the information that we have now, we've done the best that we can. But things like we're in the middle of an IT technology plan. So we're reviewing everything that we have. And by the end of that, by the end of this calendar year, we're going to have a much better idea of what investments and which direction we want to be investing in on our network system, security, any of those software platforms. The other piece that we're in the middle of right now is we have an RFP that's open for our security system and access control. So we have, upgrading our security cameras at the plant and here at Hilltop, access control at our different gates. And so these are projects that we're working on. They're going forward. Pretty soon our 10-year infrastructure planning document that's going to outline really in the next 10 years of capital plan will be complete and be presented to the board. So there's a lot of work that we're doing really that's going to wrap up in the next fiscal year that's going to give us a lot of really good information to help us plan for the next 5 to 10 years. And so fiscal year 26 is going to be really we're not slowing down any, but some of the initiatives will be getting enough information to plan for those next 5 years. And, timing wise in fiscal year 26, we will be doing the 5-year rate study as Abity mentioned. That will be coming to the board very soon to award a contract to a consultant to do that study. And so we have a lot of moving pieces here that are really helping us shape us up for the next 5 years. And so we're kind of in this transitional period this next fiscal year. But we're working on making sure that we're going to have the resources and the planning, and we're doing the planning we need to move this, to move these forward that are all in line with this, our strategic plan. So we'll kind of stop there and just answer any questions that the committee may have.
Director King Meredith.
Thank you, Deputy General Manager Justin, for that. You really keyed in. That's what I was really looking at, the utilities and how it dropped from looking at 26 to 27, and that significant drop that was shown here in the draft. The other thing, and the other thing I sort of had a question on the information technology piece, for the cyberspace and how we're going to work, with that opposed to the different changes and what is going on with cyberspace for right now. And what is the cost? The cost will be much significant. At this point, I didn't see any, I'm trying to see what the cost is, what we have been paying currently, and what is going to be the comparison for what it's going to be costing. Look at 26 and 27. Will it be a significant change, or will it be a greater increase? Do you have any idea what that would be? So many changes is coming, it's coming up, So I was just wondering about that.
So there's a couple things. So our cybersecurity costs currently are kind of baked into our contract with Apex. So they're our managed service provider that helps us do desk support, help put our laptops together. They're maintaining, just kind of reviewing. They have what's called a security operations center, a SOC. Is the term in the industry, and so that's baked into our costs. We spend about $16,000 a month with Apex, and so that we have a person that's on site twice a month, plus they have staff reviewing kind of our network and our security, and we have different programs in place they're called like endpoint protection. So that's, I have to look at the exact dollar
Okay.
amount out of that 16,000 that's related to cybersecurity. It's, if I had to like give you a ballpark, it's about,
It's just
you
that,
know,
you
about
know.
5,000 a month or so related specifically to the cybersecurity piece. You know, we have training that's a component of that. They're reviewing, we have systems in place to like, if there's any kind of intrusion into the network, that they can isolate it very quickly. They can shut down different systems. We have firewalls. So we have physical equipment that
Right.
helps protect our network. Plus, we have other protocols, like if you recognize on your phone, we have multi-factor authentication. So when you're trying to log in from a different location to your email, you have to verify through your app, through the app on your phone. And so we are following the best practices with that. The other piece that there's some money in this next year's budget is probably about 250,000 is related to our SCADA system at the treatment plant. So the SCADA system is a completely separate network of information and data that they're using and sensors that they use to maintain and operate the treatment plant. So they're looking at increasing the ability to connect to lift stations so they can get, if there's any issues at lift stations, they can get notified. They're using, you know, they're currently, is what the board just approved recently as part of a Dell contract, was part of that cost is going to be buying servers, replacing the servers for the SCADA system. And there's our contractor, which is another company that's helping us maintain the SCADA system. So there's a software, there's hardware, and there's sensors, and there's networks that can't all talk with each other. And they're highly integrated in with the Clean and Green project to make sure that all of the new components are all tied in to the SCADA system. So we've got a couple $100,000 in this budget that's related specifically to the work at the plant and making sure that network and those components are also secure. I mean, this is more information that we can provide for kind of the full board report, just to, you know, talk a little bit more about how much money we're dedicated towards the cybersecurity and kind of our network. And, you know, we're continuing to use software systems and databases to help us make, you know, data-driven decision-making, but there's a lot of work that we're still going to make sure that that we have the information that we need and that we have it in a way that we can report on it. And so it's an ongoing effort, but we've made a lot of progress over these last couple of years, and we're just going to continue that work.
Okay, thank you. And I have one more, and it was, I think it was slide number 8. I hope I wrote it down correctly. But it is alluding to speaking with the city of Richmond, I guess, for looking at some funding for the Clean and Green, and have those conversations. Has there been any conversations at that point to offset some type of monies in order to work with the Clean and Green in order for us to have that offset of the monies that are needed to complete?
Oh, no, this is the sludge. This is what
The
we're getting in. Once we
Yeah,
start, when we get out of the sludge business, we are the biosolids.
The biosolids.
That's what was on that slide.
Okay, that's the biosolids. Okay.
That's the revenue we're getting in working with the city of
So that's
Richmond.
at 1.8?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I just
1.8,
want-
1.9.
Yeah, 1.8.
This is what we'll be getting in.
1.9. Okay,
Yeah.
good. I just wanted.
It's
Yeah,
the-
so it's
this
just
is
talking, I
from
mean,
the-
we've been working with City of
Okay, I
Richmond
saw it. So they got the money.
for, you know, several years now, and it's all related to the disillusionment of the WCA. So we've been untangling, you know, decades worth of entangled agreements.
Okay.
And so this is the work of, even though the city of Richmond has been leasing there's 4 lagoons right off of Richmond Parkway as you're going into the treatment plant, you know, driving up from the gate on the right side. Those lagoons, city of Richmond has been leasing for the last, probably ever since, you know, the 60s, I'm guessing, right? Like it's, I don't have the exact date,
tell us
but
what.
it's, and so related to the Clean and Green is, well, we're not going to be essentially what we call the sludge farming. We're not going to put our solids in these ponds and just let them sit there and then have Republic Services just dispose of them. So now it's, once the digesters are online and we're able to process
And
the,
convert.
dry it to biosolids. We're going to mix City of Richmond sludge with our sludge, digested sludge, and dry it. And so that's what that revenue source is. And so the agreements have not been finalized. They're very close. So it's why we didn't anticipate a full year worth of
Okay.
revenue yet, because it's, the drying system needs to be online, but we can't use it until the digester's on. So there's all of these pieces that need to be in place first. But we're continuing. We meet weekly with City of Richmond to finalize and work on these agreements. And so there's been quite a bit of legwork over these last 2 years to get us to this point.
Where we at today.
Yep.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the clarification, Madam Chair.
Yes. Been writing feverishly because I have, yeah, you can get comfortable because I got a bunch of questions because I don't want to do this at the board meeting. All right, so let's go through this. Let me see, let me get started. Let's start with operating revenue. The sewer service charges and Deputy General Manager, you can jump in and throw an assist where you need to. So we know that we're doing the 5-year sewer rate plan. It's going to give us better numbers in FY 2026. So right now, we are projecting this 3% and 5% increase in 26 and 27. So right now, you have it at 31.9 million and then 33.5 million with those 3 and 5% respective adjustments. My recommendation is that you lead with the caveat of the 5-year sewer rate plan instead of putting it at the back end. Okay? Lead with the fact that we are doing the sewer rate plan. We're doing the study that you have because you said you already have the RFP out, right? We haven't conducted it yet. So if you lead with the fact that, we have these numbers and it's 3 and 5%, and then you say we're gonna do the sewer rate plan, you're gonna start a whole round of conversation. And so I'd rather you say, hey, board, remember that last week we gave you this presentation, or last month, because this is gonna happen in June, right? Last month, we gave you this presentation on the sewer rate study, blah, 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 right? With that, we told you that we're gonna use these to do the sewer rate study, and then sometime we're going to come to you and we're going to do this 5-year sewer rate plan. That will inform us and then with that, we are projecting that we're going to have 3 and 5 increase. It could be 3 to 5% in 26. It could be 5 to 7% in 27. Whatever that is, I don't know. I'm making numbers up.
Well, just to clarify, fiscal year 26 is the last year of our current 5-year
I
rate
know.
plan. So that one is not changing. It is 3%.
Say that.
Because we are not going through we don't have time to do a Prop 218
But I would
notice.
say that.
So I think that we'll clarify that
Because it doesn't-
26 is 3%, and it's the last year of our 5-year rate.
But it doesn't say that.
Fiscal year
Nowhere in this
27,
presentation
right?
does, I know this because I've been on the board. David and even Director Weiner may know it, but even he's gonna forget because he's asked these
Yeah.
about 5 times. Every time we go through the budget, he asks that question. And it's okay to ask that question because that was 6 years ago when we came up with this. And I just, but Director King Meredith and President Retila were not here. So my recommendation, so we don't go down this rabbit hole of this discussion, is to just remind people that FY '26 was the last year, is the last year of the previous 5 year, right? So as we go into FY '27, this 5% projection is based on, however, it will not be finalized until we realize the outcome of the 5-year rate plan. With that, then go into the discussion, but I would leave with that.
Sure.
Just leave with it. We'll limit the discussion if we leave with it, just my experience,
Right.
right? That's just my experience. Yes, yes. I like to get out of the board meetings as expediently as possible. Okay, this is the first one. The next one is, the biosolids, Director King Meredith brought it up. I sit on the Biosolids Coalition, so there's always confusion about biosolids and what we're doing with biosolids and why we're doing it with biosolids and how much money we're making with biosolids. And if we're sitting on the corner with a jar of them saying, hey, come buy these biosolids, right? And if we're opening a market for biosolids. So I think, again, I would lead this discussion with just a one sentence saying that, as you recall, we dissolved the relationship with, this is an outcome of the dissolution of the districts and the city of Richmond's WCA, right? And this is not just for the board, this is also for the public, right? Because I think that there's a presumption when you just put it like this, that people remember, and people have very short memories. So if you start with just, I'll repeat this when General Counsel gets back, because she can help you craft just that one sentence. But I think that, let me see, where are my notes here? There she is, she's coming back.
No, it's just Nicole.
No, General Counsel.
She wanted you to remember a
General
sentence.
Counsel, what I was saying is that, so General Counsel, what I'm saying is that for biosolids, what I would like is just a one sentence reminder that to lead off with, instead of just immediately saying as part of Clean and Green, is just reminding people that the district and city of Richmond mutually agreed to dissolve WCA. And as an outcome of that dissolution of that entity, and as part of the Clean and Green, and then go into the discussion of our switch from sludge storage in lagoons to the creation of biosolids. And I think that puts it on the record for the public as well as the board. Okay? I know it seems small, but I'm a big person in trying to remind people of what we did, so we don't go into these huge not dissertation, what's the other one? Soliloquies and dissertations of why we're doing what we're doing.
And they're very complex, and it's us to untangle these agreements and to enter into operating agreements. It's been a multi-year process, and it's not so straightforward as we're trying to make it that way. We're trying to make it a lot easier to manage going forward. I think that's just kind of the other caveat. It is to explain all the pieces and their interlocking, because I haven't mentioned that Republic Services is involved in this, in the handling of the biosolids, which is another operating agreement that we're renegotiating. So
Right.
there's a lot of moving pieces.
A lot of moving pieces. And so you can remind them that, I just think, just that one small reminder, and that Hanson and Bridges has been, and then say that too, right? Hanson and Bridges has been integral in this in the last, 4 or 5 years?
Yes.
And helping us.
Yes,
Helping us
since they
clean-
came on and board,
helping us
yes.
clean these up. And so, and I think that will quell the conversation, and just saying, we've been working diligently towards ensuring that, all the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed, and then talk about the biosolids. But just put those like 1 or 2 sentences in there, and then saying, as part of that, it has opened up the ability for us to seek operating revenue streams in moving from sludge storage in lagoons to the creation of biosolids. And we've created this new relationship with City of Richmond, and we anticipate bringing in, 1.35 million in 20, like that. And I think then it looks like, wow, right? We've got, we don't have what do you call it, a biosolid stand where we are hawking things in a bottle. Come by biosolids in mason jars on the corner. It looks like it was very intentional and proactive from our standpoint. Interest earnings, which is another one. And I know I'm going to sound like a broken record when I tell you guys to do this, but I just think that each one of these requires just a little bit of, what's the word, lead-in. So for this one, Deputy General Manager, again, my experience tells me that this is another one where you may want to just, because it says interest income is projected to remain flat, I think you might want to flip that sentence around and just say, because you said despite volatility in market conditions, I think you want to flip that around. We don't know what we don't know. Because we don't know what we don't know, that you are being conservative in your estimate, in your projections, and that you may want to take another look at this in mid-year budget each year, right? But right now, you're going to estimate a flat income projection, something like that, right? Because over the last few years, we've been pretty good, right? And so whether it's the public or the board, they're gonna be, wait, we've had some really good interest coming in. Why are you doing it this way? So you may want to just say right up front, we don't know what we don't know. The market's been very volatile. And so it is best to take a very conservative approach. We will be watching the market, and we will be giving you updates in the mid-year cycles. Something like that that's just my recommendation.
Yeah,
So-
it is as the Feds held the interest rates yesterday
I saw.
in their most recent meeting. They're meeting again in June. And it's kind of the economic indicators are waiting to see if there's going to be inflation, but it's kind of the lag.
Right.
So if there is higher inflation than they want, yes, then they may lower the interest rates, or they may.
Yeah.
So there's so many variabilities, and it's, as we talked last night about the uncertainty of tariffs, which are creating the volatility in the market. Like, we had a huge drop, and then it came back up a couple weeks later. So we just don't know what we don't know, and
I would just say
I think that's it, and this is a conservative estimate, and if we get more, we can come back and we can adjust, or if the interest earnings are less, we can, that is definitely we don't want to over budget ourselves. We'd rather have more interest earnings than anticipated than have to go back and adjust the budget downward.
I would say that. I would just say exactly what you just saying, and it won't open a whole bunch of conversation. And then just tell them, we will give you an update during the mid-year budget cycles, just like that. It might just still be the same, 0. You don't know what you don't know. Like you said yesterday, our costs are our costs, and our earnings are our earnings, right? The permit fees is the same thing. Again, I would go back to doing the leading on what the permit fees are and what they are not. Based on the conversation from last night, I looked at this again last night after the board meeting. I looked at this again, and I still think there's confusion on what permit fees are and what they are not based on the questions that were asked in the board meetings. Permit fees are not the, the user fee. They're not they're not the use fees. So I think just a reminder what permit fees are might be in order. Just, and you could even just say, reminder that permit fees are these, what it is included when you're talking about permit fees, just so people know is not what it is or what it is not, whichever way you want to say that. But just to tell them what we, meaning the district, consider to be a permit fee. Does that make sense? You understand what I mean? So just define that. And then I'm making myself a note, so when you, and then the contract services, can you, again, this, another one that needs definition. Tell me why you're here, why you're meaning here, so that I can make sure I understand what you're saying. Which one is, because I look at the chart for contracted services, and I'm looking at the actual staff report written. Contract services and other operating revenue. And I know that you say, so which one is this?
Contracted services, we do it for the Proctor and.
Yeah, so it's the, yeah, so we maintain some pump stations. So there's Crockett Community Services District. We're slowing down on some of that work until they can upgrade some of their areas. But as we do, so we have contracts, Crockett Community Services District, as well with the county related to the Justice Center pump station, and as well as the a stormwater pump station that is off of Gertrude. We also have an agreement to maintain that station with the county of Contra Costa. So those are, that's our main piece of contract service revenue. If, Albany, if you want to talk about the other, there was a couple other items this last year, but they're smaller. If you look at the comparison, like what percentage of all our revenues they are.
No, I just want you to just say that. I just want you to say contracted services such as, so that they know the difference.
Right.
Right? So just say something like this. So contracted services and other operating revenues. So in case the board is unaware, we do things like the district has been contracted by the county to handle, by City of Richmond, by Crockett Community Services District to do, and this is where we bring in extra revenue, like that, right? Just so that and so that the public knows what it is that the district is doing outside of just this little area, right? And so that they know that that's where we get some of the extra revenue. And then the non-operating revenue, and this is where like the lease for Color Spot. And when is that expected to end?
It's April of 2026. There is a possibility of another extension, but we're working that out. Like, so we don't want to plan for it until that agreement is finalized by the board.
Okay, so, and so this one, the lease revenue projected to decline due to the ending of renewals. Okay, and so even here, right, all of these, and again, I get it. Just either give an example or give a lead-in, right? I think that saying, is there any other one besides that one? Any other, because this says rents, leases, and other non-operating revenues.
So we have no other leases.
No, or non-operating revenues. Is there anything else in that category?
There would have to look at the detail, but the vast majority is the lease from the Color Spot property. Sometimes there's just small reimbursements or some that
I
end
would
up
say
in
that
there.
then,
Yeah.
because if either say it just like that, say the vast majority of this category is related to the Color Spot property. Occasionally, we have small reimbursements, et cetera, like that. Just say it just like that, so that we don't go down these, well, what else is included? You understand what I mean? Just say that one sentence and that'll get us out of this bullet point without a long conversation. The bond proceeds, I think we've talked about this before, Jocelyn, about the bond proceeds is just saying they flip that sentence that says we don't have new bond proceeds, but this category was originally budgeted for FY '25, and it will be carried over to FY '26. Okay? And then the same with, so with capacity charges, you don't, I don't know, because I would just say it's, because there's a lot of development activity taking place in West County, but we don't know what that is. So I would just say, current system build out. I don't know, because they're building like mad in West County and North Richmond and everywhere else. I think that this one is another one of those, we don't know, we don't know. So these charges are held flat. I think just go back to your conservative conversation, right? You don't know what you don't know. So just say that these charges are held flat.
Yeah, and just to talk about capacity charges, how those, if somebody is, say it's a house that they're already connected to the system and the usage isn't changing, they don't owe us a capacity charge, even though they may be doing work and major remodeling. But if it's a new use, they're changing the type of use, where it's, there's a commercial building that's going to a restaurant, and there wasn't a restaurant there before, that would trigger a capacity charge because it increasing the use. So those are things we don't know. So it's typically they're increasing the use in the sewer system and they're already connected, they're changing the use, or it's a new connection, which that's much more infrequent, are the new connections. But those happen occasionally, and there are parcels that are not connected or that they're not built yet, or there's an annexation. And so, that would come to the board. If you see an annexation, you approve an annexation of a new parcel into our district, usually shortly after that, there'll be a capacity charge when they're ready to build as well. So those are, it's just, we don't know until it actually happens. Even with planning, we're talking about Hilltop across the street, they've been talking about development for years. We don't know when that actually is going to happen, though. And, so we don't think it's going to happen. So we're not going to budget for it until we have more certainty about what is happening.
Right, and I think that's what you say. It's uncertainty. We don't know, so we're being conservative with this estimate based on what we know, right? And it's the same thing with North Richmond, right, Ms. Annie?
Well, that's the new,
The new developments,
well, the new that, which is the houses.
which is the houses, but it's not done yet.
No, it's not.
Right, so you don't know what we don't know. So we're being conservative based on what we know today. So I would just say that. And I'm saying that because President Ratila brought it up yesterday
For Hilltop.
for Hilltop,
Yes.
and he brings it up often.
About
And so did Director Wiener. They both brought up about these connections. So I'm just saying to ward off this long discussion about it, just say, this is based on the information that we know on actuals,
And not the uncertainty.
and not uncertain projections, right? That we don't get into a long discussion on it. And the other one on grants, again, I would flip it, talk about that it was budgeted in FY '25 and not spent, so therefore it's been carried over to '26. And emphasize that this is it's from SFBRA, and it's for the North Richmond levy. That one's fine. Anything before we move to expenses, Director King Meredith? But any questions on any of those, you, staff? Anything on Director King Meredith on any of those before we move to expenses?
No, but you did mention the grants, but we're good. That's why I brought up we're good. So let's move to the expense now.
Okay, FY '25 to '26. Let me make myself a note really quick. Bond proceeds bleeding. Okay, so on the expenses, I do not want to get into a labor conversation on these personnel and benefits. So, Deputy General Manager, can we please remind the board what we agreed? I don't know the date, and I don't know if you or General Counsel can remind us of the date. But can we go back and remind the board we agreed at the date we agreed? I don't know. But every time we do these, there's a question, is this the amount we agreed or is this the date? But can we somehow reference when we agreed or, we don't have to agree. We don't have to like go into all of these, but can we say something like, this is based on
The assumptions are really based on the existing MEU agreement.
Yeah, but
Because
when
we don't
was-
have anything
I
else.
know, but when
right?
was the existing MEU agreed? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, when it was adopted, because it was
Yes.
several months ago, so I think that's something we can just put in there, that the board adopted the current MEU,
Yes.
MOU, right? 'Cause
MOU.
All our, all of our acronyms, that is our assumption, because that's the only thing that's active right now. And if things need to be adjusted later, we'll do that later, I think that's.
While negotiation for 1 unit is ongoing, staff, I think it needs a comma. While negotiation for 1 unit is ongoing, staff have budgeted COLAs. Is this on the benefits, is this correct? The 5% annual adjustment? Because I seem to remember from CSDA and from CSRMA, a different figure. Is that right?
Well, this is just for medical
I know.
benefits. And so, we did that in the fall, is when our current, and when CalPERS will inform us if there's any changes. There's, in the last several years, there's been 1 or 2 years where we've had 0 increase, and then some we've had 11% increase a couple years ago. So it's, for right now, we don't know what that increase may be effective January of 2026. So we're just putting in there as really placeholder of 5%, because that's probably our out of the benefit costs outside of CalPERS contributions. Medical is our next biggest one. We do have the kind of workers' comp insurance costs. We have our other, dental benefits and EAP, which are much smaller percentage of everything else. But and then there's the also our OPEB contribution as well.
Dr. Kim Meredith, do you have anything? I need to mull this for a second. It was something, I had a question and
So I just want to be, I just want to be clear with these benefits. Did we not have this discussion a few months ago? And discuss what it's going to be for 26?
Specifically
I
about
mean,
benefits, we haven't had much discussion on kind of what the costs are, because most benefits, they're all part of the negotiated
Right.
benefits with each of the bargaining units.
But in our
And those haven't
committee-
changed much.
Yeah.
We haven't had a big discussion on kind of the benefit costs, what goes into it, what are we forecasting. I think that's something I'm planning to bring, to talk more about the pension specifically in the near future to the F&A committee, that we can kind of get a better idea of what our liabilities are, because we have our unfunded accrued liability that we have to pay, plus we have the employer contribution that we pay to CalPERS, employees pay a share. And so there's a lot of, there's actuarial studies that go in that, CalPERS does every year to update what our contributions would be, and how those have been fluctuating based on market costs. So and we're always about a year or 2 year delay from when, if there's a loss in the market, CalPERS loses money, then we end up, 2 years later, we end up paying more money to our CalPERS. But it's, we haven't had like a thorough discussion about that. We talked briefly, but we haven't gone into like much detail as a committee.
Okay. All
Okay.
right, thank you.
So our unfunded
Yeah.
is about 1.7 in 26 and 1.9 in 27. That's what you're
Right.
estimating,
Yes,
right?
that's correct. Or
And
additional
that's a
payment.
17 point,
Well, so that is in addition to the 17.4% of salary that the
Yeah.
district contributes. So that that 1.7 million is an additional payment that we make, really to make up for losses in the past
got it,
for those employees who are under the classic plan.
got it.
PEPRA is a much smaller.
Yeah, 8%.
Yeah, it's 8%, but the unfunded accrued liability for the PEPRA members is much smaller, so about $50,000. Yeah.
50?
Yeah.
And you're saying OPEB is going to stay flat both years?
Yeah, so we're, I think that we have had some discussion about that, just on interest earnings, is part of our audit. I think we did have a brief discussion on the OPEB, so we are slightly overfunded. So that means we have a little bit more, I think it was about 112% of our accrued liability for OPEB. That's just the retiree medical cost. But we are still contributing to that on an annual basis. And so about every 2 years, we get an updated actuarial study on our OPEB liability and what the assumed contribution is. 4 years ago, we were contributing as a district about 14% of payroll. But as we became overfunded, essentially we have a little bit more money than what we need. That went down to 4.7% of payroll. We're going to continue that, and now what we're doing these next couple of years is we're balancing. Since we have a 115 trust, we can use that money that's been invested in to pay the retiree medical cost, and so we're balancing paying using the 115 trust to pay for the medical benefit. So that's the whole purpose of that fund, and that's helping reduce the expenses that you see here on the benefit side. So it's getting into the detail of how we're creating a budget. It's, we're going to pay some of it as cash and some of it is 115 from the 115 trust.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's more detail than necessarily necessary for the
Yeah, I don't need that.
board.
Sound like how I pay my PG&E versus my
Right.
USB mud bill, but somebody gotta get paid. Yeah, I don't know if we need that detail at the board meeting, but I do know that this one always, these particular bullets always seem to invite way too much discussion. I'm just trying to figure out how we can make it, less.
It is, yes, less conversational,
Yes.
like I do.
How we can bring down the conversation on these and make, okay, so can we start with salaries? Can we just start with, start it off with the vacancy factor, right? Say, the following numbers take into account a historical 3% vacancy factor. Maybe start there, okay?
Sure.
What'd you say?
I just say flip it.
Flip it. Start with saying, something like that. Keep in mind, the following projections account for a historical 3% vacancy factor across all departments, which also includes typical, turnover, whatever. And then also give the caveat that we are still in negotiations that we are not going to discuss in this forum. And however, these projections include a maximum cost of living adjustment of up to 5% in 26, 4% in 27. But and to keep the conversation from going where my head
Catch it at the front.
thinks it's going to go, is say something like, General Counsel, you might want to help me out here, make sure we don't step over something. Based on, I don't know, can we say previous, or historical negotiation, previous negotiations, something like that? I'm being very careful, because I'm afraid of this whole maximum 5% and 4%, because right now, where do those numbers come from? Right?
But it says recent approved.
No,
Right,
it
yeah, so-
wasn't. It was approved for a different
For one
unit.
bargaining unit. So
So what I'm saying
we
is
had to make
based,
an assumption
you're
that there'd be
making-
something.
right.
But we don't know what that is.
yes, but that's gonna come up in the meeting, and
Right.
I'm trying to quell having a conversation about that in the meeting. That's going to teeter on getting us in trouble. So what I'm trying to say is, where did these numbers come from? And if we can we say something like, I don't know.
It's based on a currently approved agreement. I think
That's what I'm
that's
asking.
as much as we can say. at
That's
this
what I
point.
want to know. Can we say that?
Yeah.
That
Can we
that's
say
what
that?
it's based on, that it's based on an existing approved agreement, yes. Yeah,
That's
we
what I
can
wanna
say
know.
that.
Can
I
we
think
say
that's
that?
fine. It's just an acknowledgement that we don't know what we don't know.
We've another.
We don't know what we don't know.
Yes.
But this is what I want to say. So can we say that instead of just this thing about while negotiations is still ongoing? Can we not say that?
Yeah, we can just say what our assumption is based on a currently
That's what I
approved
want to say.
agreement.
I want to
Yeah,
say
think
that. I want to
that's-
take
we'll
that
just stop
other.
at that,
I want to
yeah.
take that part out
Okay.
and just say this. So go back, flip it, say the 3% vacancy factor, and then say these projections. These projections are based on a recently approved agreement. Can we do that? I think you have the direction that
Yeah,
I'm
I
asking.
think we can just do wordsmithing a little
Okay,
bit on
can,
there. But we can-
are you good with this? Okay. Okay, so I think that'll stop too much conversation on that one. And it's pretty much the same. I'm gonna have the same comments on services and supplies as I did with the other ones. Can you just give it a lead-in that you're being, about the tariffs, right? And we don't know. Justin and Abini, we don't know. Because the thing with IT that you said earlier, Deputy General Manager, was you said that you're working on the IT plan and then the security system and access control plan, right? So I think I would like to see. I think for each of these, it's gonna be the same comment. I think before you just throw the numbers in, you should tell them what you're doing. The numbers are always better in my philosophy in life. I do this with my husband. What do you mean it costs too much? It was on sale, see? This is what it cost before. And see how much it cost after the reduction. See, you see the smile on my face. So much happier. I'm so much happier now. And then tell him how much it costs. See? So if you tell them the reason for it and then say the price, it's so much easier. So when you talk about, like Director King Meredith asked about cybersecurity and system reliability, she asked about that. So I think talk about that first and then tell them what
What the cost is gonna be.
what the cost is going to be and why. Because you're telling the why, and then, because right now we have the cost and then we have the why. I think explaining the why and then the cost is so much better, right? Because by the time you get to the why, they already seen the car, huh?
No cost?
The sticker shock, they're still stuck on the sticker shock. So explaining in the staff report itself, in the narrative, and then walking through the numbers
and then tell me.
is always a lot easier. The professional and technical services, going back to this, you said that it reflects contracts that are either executed or highly likely to be executed. What does it mean? Because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you need.
We have an idea, a closest thing is we have an idea of some of the types of services we're going to need. And I think that's really, as our budget is we're forecasting.
Right.
We can
But
look
you
at,
said you have an RFP for security systems and access control. You got a 10-year capital plan that's upcoming. You have the IT plan, and we still are having the
We have sewer rates.
cybersecurity plan.
yeah,
So I'm just saying.
some of those numbers are known and some are not, right? Like, because we're still going to have to go through our solicitation process.
Exactly. So I think on the professional and technical services, I think I wanted it to say with that sentence, based on what we know today. Something like that, right? Just because I know with supplies materials, we say that based on what we know today, because we don't know. We wake up this morning and the tariffs are 400%, and this afternoon the tariffs are 1%. We don't know. But with professional and technical services, we see this with the Clean and Green project, right? We thought we were gonna be doing something in FY '26 and it got rolled to FY '27. So based on what we know today, these contracts, these are the ones we know we're going to need. But this is based on the information we have today. And I think letting the board know that right now, these are the personnel that we need, these are the professional services that we need, but that might change. And from a finance and administration standpoint, we want to be able to support what you guys tell us you need. I don't want to run your operations, but I do want to be able, from a governance standpoint, support what you need operationally. So I don't want you to back yourself in a corner and say, these are the only, because you put the word only in here. These are the only contracts we're gonna need. No, you don't know that. Okay, does that make sense? All right. Supplies and materials. I know you didn't put it in here, but I want that word in here somewhere. That either the tariffs, either the word surplus, something. So I'm gonna leave it to general counsel to help you wordsmith it somehow. You don't know what you don't know, but the surplus tax, tariff, something in here under supplies and materials, and
That may increase the cost.
the uplift of the cost, whatever it is, we don't know what it is. So just add what you need to add, build it into the budget. If you build it into the budget, you don't have to keep coming back to the board with change orders or asking for extra money. Build it into your budget now, since we know now, at least for '26, that is gonna be a rocky road. They say it's not the road that kills you, it's that pebble in your shoe. And this a pebble, this is like a boulder in our shoe, okay? So build it into the budget, what you need, what you know now, and it may change along the way.
Currently, yeah.
And my experience is the board loves to come back and say, what you said was money? Even if we already knew that that money was cushioned, we love to hear that you didn't spend all the money that we allocated to you, okay? There's so much, it's like found money, even though it wasn't, okay? The utility expenses, this is the one I wrote some notes on. Justin, you just gave a really good explanation of, I'm gonna read back to you what I wrote. The digesters are expected to come online next month, June 25, as part of the Clean and Green project. During the first few months of FY '26, the cogen system will start to reduce dewatering solids expenses. We spend approximately 4.6 million, and that will go away once the digesters are completely online. Once the battery energy storage system, BESS, is installed, then and fully online in FY '27, we will be able to fully realize the full potential of the Clean and Green project.
That's
Right?
correct, yes. Good
Oh,
summary.
I'm pretty good with shorthand, darling. I'm really good with this. And I wrote it because I've been waiting for this since the day I met NG at that conference 6 years ago. And I've been waiting for this. When you're talking about the utility expenses, I think that this cannot be underemphasized. Because right now it says utility expenses are projected to decline significantly over the 2-year period. And then you've just got to tie that together more. Like a balloon going up. These are like celebration time, right?
And we're being conservative on these estimates. We really hope we're going to have even bigger savings in fiscal year '27.
Right.
You know, it's the plan is that the treatment plant for periods of the day will be a true microgrid, will generate all the electricity it needs to operate for many hours a day. And if that happens, I believe it will, it's just we'll have even greater savings than what we're budgeted for. And so but we want to be conservative because we're talking about it. We don't want to overestimate.
Overpromise.
Overpromise, yeah.
Promise. So under promise, over deliver, right? And I think that this is good, and I think that's just being able to talk about it is a good one. And I think that even that one coupled with the wastewater treatment, phasing out the dewatering by the middle of the year, by December of next year, is really good. But the cost of the chemicals, again, going back to putting that word in there, why are the costs of the chemicals variable? And it says that you're only putting a 5% increase in '26 and 7% in '27. And it says inflationary pressures. Is it only inflationary pressures or is it something else?
Well, at this point, we had, it's basically tripled over the last 2 years, our chemical cost. Going from 90 cents a gallon to $3.20 a gallon. And those were not inflationary pressures, those were supply chain issues.
Exactly, but it doesn't say that. It doesn't say
And
that.
so we think that the supply chain issues with chlorine and a lot of the chemicals we get is stabilized, but we don't know, right? Like that, and that's the issue again, right? Is
Run out.
because those are critical to our treatment process and
Yes.
disinfection, and we're gonna have to pay for it, whatever it ends
Wherever
up
it's
being.
coming from.
So that's what I was waiting for you to say. So you got to say that, inflationary pressures, supply chain issues. We need the chemicals. We got to pay
need it.
what it is. This happened during COVID, right? You got to pay what it is, but you got to name it. You got to name the issue. And you got to name it also for the public, because this is going to come into effect when we do any Prop 218 thing. You got to name it, right? We got to pay people. So the personnel, the wages and the benefits, you got to pay them to do the work. And you got to have the supplies and material. Some things are discretionary.
Yeah.
Those are not. And so you have to name what it is. If it's supply chain, if it's inflationary pressures is such a it's such a fun phrase to me. It is what it is. The costs have gone up. So it is, I think you just have to name what it is. And so I would like it to be in writing for anybody who pulls it down off of the site, and I would like it to be said for anybody who listens. What is the issue that's driving up our costs? And it's something that was asked of us when President Rentila asked last night when we were going and speaking to legislators. And they asked, what are the things that are hampering you from getting the work done to protect our communities? And this is one of them. So I want to be able to point to it and tell them. It's not inflationary pressures, it's supply chain issues, the price has gone up, it is what it is. You said it last night, our costs are our cost. Costs are our costs. We have to pay people, we gotta pay for the supplies and materials. I tried to go over there and buy that truck for $15,000, but the man said he want $532,000. He wouldn't argue with it. He said that these are his costs. So it's things like that. So can we just make sure it says this? And the 1.9 in 26 and the 1.2 in 27 is, and the 5% in 26 and 7% in 27 is those numbers, because they seem low to me, but those are the numbers you're gonna stick with? It seemed low to me. I don't know about you, Director King Meredith, but they just seemed low to me.
Well, it depends on how much it's gonna be doubled, if it's gonna be doubled, the cost.
No, he say right there, if you look, it says
It's
wastewater treatment,
1.9?
it says,
1.9
it includes, no, it says that the last sentence says the cost of chemicals remain variable. The budget includes estimated increases of 5% in 2026 and 7% in 2027. And those percentages just seem low to me.
No, we should look at, yes, and we talked about it last.
We talked
time.
about it last night. It just
Yeah,
seems
yeah.
low to me. Is that, are you, like they say on the,
How about
like they say at the
probably-
game show, is that your final answer?
Yeah,
Or
well,
do you want to
probably,
take
you know,
another
with
look
all
at
the-
this?
You know, with all the changes that's going on now, probably we need to increase.
Yeah, I think
We-
you ought to
know,
take another
probably,
look
you
at
know,
those
Looking
numbers.
at what's going on right now, we need to sort of increase.
Yeah.
From that 5%.
Yeah, and if you, so my
Yeah.
advice, I mean, I'm not gonna tell you what to do. This your operations. But I'm just gonna tell you to go back to what I said before, is we are here to support the operations. And I just don't want you to have to keep coming back to the board.
Being short.
Yes, being short. So look back and think about what do you need to build it into the budget, right? And if you don't use it, you don't use it. We're not saying go out and buy, gold spinners for the trucks, but come on now. If you need like you said, you gotta have the bleach. You gotta have the
And
the
way-
chemicals. And if you're seeing that instead of 99 cents it's costing $4, then that's not 5%. That's a lot more. Hey, do we need to, at least in 26, 27 might be different, but at least in 26,
We can see
you're
where
gonna
we're
have
going.
to say, let's look at 26, and then we might have to do something different in the mid-year budget. In the mid-year budget, we might have to make a different adjustment for 27. But at least in 26, you might wanna, I don't know.
And bring it up to cover.
This is me saying that I think that 5% seems, I think in other areas, I agree with being conservative. But in wastewater treatment, which is the crux of what we do, I think that being conservative, we're hurting ourselves in supplies and materials and in wastewater treatment, which is the heart of what we do. I think we need to spend what we need to spend so that we can do the work that we do. Or not spend what we spend, but you know what I mean, allocate the monies to get the work
To be
done.
functional.
We have to allocate it in the budget.
And then the other unknown is that changes chemical usage or the amount that we need is wet weather, right? If we have a really wet year,
Yes.
more flow means more chemicals
Right.
that we have to use. So there's the balancing of, pulling out the farmer's almanac and seeing if we've, what it's gonna rain or not this far. I mean, because that's the other unknown.
And that goes back to the spot repairs as well, right? The CSO spot repairs.
Yes, yeah, it's been, depending on, the discussion last night is, there may be more spot repairs in the future as the goal is to increase the amount of lines that they're doing CCTV.
Right.
They're gonna identify more smaller areas that don't have to be a capital project where they can just do this 10 feet and get that done and replace really quickly. So that may change, but it's, just looking at current year, like spot repairs, we're thinking about 150,000 this year. But, it's as the operations are changing, as staff are doing more work or the more that preventative work, then those are other adjustments. As we could say, this is to the best of our knowledge right now, what
Right.
we think is reasonable.
So back to my question, because I do want to get us out of here. What is the 5% and the 7% allocation? Realistic for you guys? Do you need to adjust it? Yeah, and it's more of a guidance question for you right now. It's to take a look at it because I can't, I know I'm not expecting you to answer that right off the top of your head right now. I do think you need to take a look at it, but I do want you to give the board a number or a percentage that you can actually work with. I just don't. I don't know what that number is. It just seems low to me.
Especially from the conversation last night.
Especially from the conversation last night and the presentation last night.
Yeah.
And a really quick question, and I know going to the next one, non-operating expenditures, going to like the capital outlay and the capital, because the capital outlay is where the vehicles and large equipment needs are, because we put money towards the CCTV truck and cameras. Is the same kind of question, right? We're buying one truck and that's going to assist with that kind of thing. Where is the money in the budget? Where is the money for like training for the staff to help with what we spoke about last night? Like, we're putting this money into this new technology, like the CCTV truck and things like this, and the new safety features. So I was thinking about last night that we also want to put money into training, more staff in these new equipment, in these new technologies. And question was asked about AI, Director King Emeritus last night, and making sure that this new way of doing business and making sure we keep staff safe and we help them be more effective and efficient. Have we allocated? I don't see where this allocated here. Maybe I'm missing it. I see, like professional development. I see professional and technical services, but I don't see like professional development of staff and like safety development of staff. And I'm not talking about in-house. I'm talking about making sure, I don't mean like I know you do a lot in-house. I mean like making sure that, are they getting the CCTV training? Are they getting the, like this new equipment and things that we're really investing in? Where is that here?
So it could be a mix. So for like professional development, that's kind of all training. So if a staff member is going to get certified in the evaluation of pipes, right? It's like
Yeah.
a whole week
Yeah.
training.
Yeah.
So it's, several staff have already been trained and there's several more to be
Right.
trained. So like that's part of it, going to conferences, but occasionally for the cost of training for new equipment is included in the equipment price. So like last night, it's.
Okay.
So they're including, so we're gonna buy this new piece of equipment. The manufacturer or the company we're buying it from will provide, as part of that, they're gonna come on site and train staff the features and the operations of that particular piece of equipment.
So they get a certificate in it, or they get some kind of training?
I'll have to go back and look at if they get a certificate, but they do get trained on it. But the CCTV truck, we have a separate software that we're using for the work that we're getting. So the camera is a physical piece of equipment, but there's a
Right.
software system that we're using that the camera, and it helps us rate and grade,
Right.
the pipes. And so that, some of that is training, it comes out of the information technology line item because it's related to the software. And so we may be buying additional training hours from that software vendor to train staff on how to be more proficient or how to be more advanced users in that particular system. So there is, it's a mix. It's not just one line item, depending on where it's coming from. It could be under the information technology with some of the software training, or just be under professional development.
Okay, I think that that is really, really important that you speak to this. Because I was thinking about this last night when the presentation was done, and I was like, okay, so where is that? When I went back and I was reviewing for today's meeting, and I just didn't see it at all. It's not in the verbiage, it's not on the, it's nowhere in this presentation, anywhere about this kind of training. And this is like really important. We buy a $500,000 truck, and it's not, it wasn't even in there last night in the present. Okay, so how, Michael mentioned it in his training. The deputy general manager, Savannah, mentioned it when he gave the presentation, but it wasn't clear. Like, okay, so are they getting certified? Are they getting, how are we to know that they're getting adequately trained? And especially on the CCTV camera system, Director King Meredith and I saw when we were down in Southern California, and it's a very tricky machine, right? And so I think that it's really, really important that you daylight that in each of the areas. If it's under IT, then mention it. But I like that if it's inherent with the purchase, then say it. Just say it like an example. For example, in the purchase that you just approved in your previous board meeting for the CCTV truck, the vendor includes training for X number of users. Like that.
If we have to do additional software, that's included also.
Your mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, bring it down so they can hear you. No, bring your mic down.
Oh, I'm sorry. And also, if it's additional software, as our Deputy General Manager just mentioned it, if we need additional software, that cost will be added also.
Right. So, and I think that, and if it is that, then when you make your presentation for, like last night, if it is that kind of additional training, then that should be included in the staff report for that approval. So last night, when the approval for the CCTV camera, right? I think that would have been nice to know that we may need to have an additional expenditure for training for 5 staff members to be trained on the software. Do you understand?
Right. And that is something where we are always thinking about and making sure that we have the resources available. So that is, it's baked into this budget. Just looking at it as an organization, we are investing in our staff and making sure they have the right training and that they have access to training if there's others that we might not know about, but that they learn through the different associations or different groups that are in there. But we provide it and we give it as accessible to all of those who need it.
Oh, no
I think
doubt.
generally. But yeah, I think about it